Welcome to Hicks at Home, and your fish box this week is going to be fresh anchovies and Dover sole. Now today it's a bit more about preparation than cooking as such, but saying that, people often get rather worried about pan frying fish. Last week we did the whole sea bass, and this week we're going to focus on pan frying. But first we're going to prepare the anchovies. I remember sitting in a factory once in Spain and it was an anchovy canning factory, and we were behind this sort of glass screen watching all these old girls with fags in their mouth filleting anchovies with their thumbs and put them straight into the cans. But actually anchovies can be filleted relatively quickly without the use of a knife. All we do is snap the head off and you run your thumb, it's quite satisfying this, down the spine and pull out the bone. And what I'm going to do is lay these into a dish, and we're going to, technically I suppose it's sousing, a bit like soused mackerel. So I'm going to do a hot vinegar solution, so they're going to be briefly cooked and sort of pickled all at the same time. So it's a great way to serve anchovies fresh. Everyone seems to be only really ever eating tinned anchovies, so these are a little bit of a treat in your fish box this week. I'm not quite as quick as the old girls in the anchovy canning factory, but there was a lovely sense of filleting something very cleanly without the use of a knife. Okay, there's a little sprat that got mixed in with that. So I suppose the name for this dish really is, you know, in France and places they all tend to call it an escabeche. I quite like the old-fashioned use of the word soused. My grandmother always used to souse mackerel when I was a young kid fishing, and I just had those memories of the lovely fresh fish in that sort of vinegary flavour. So for that pickling liquid, we're literally going to have some vinegar, a little bit of water, we're literally going to bring it to the boil, salt and pepper, now you could change the marinade a little bit if you wished. You could put some thyme, fresh herbs, you could put some juniper berries in, you could put a bay leaf in. But I'm going to add chopped shallots and parsley, so a little bit like the boccheronis that you get in Spain, those white anchovy fillets. And it's really dead simple, so we don't splash it everywhere. That's the beauty of induction. You can make a mess and you don't have to take the cooker apart. Anyway, so that's come to the boil, and we're literally going to just pour them on top, so they're going to sort of half cook, I suppose. So I'm going to add to this some chopped shallots and parsley. Now, when I used to work at the Grosvenor House Hotel when I was 18 years old, we were always given a bag of shallots, and back in those days, shallots were those tiny little round ones, about half the size of these. But these banana shallots are much easier to prepare, and it's a funny story, the first week in the kitchen, the chef used to come around, and if you didn't chop the shallots correctly, he would scoop them onto a board and throw them into the stock pot and then bring you a fresh bag of shallots. So it's really important when you're chopping shallots in a professional kitchen to get them right the first time. So as you see, I've cut them in half and I've left the root on. This same thing applies to onions. And with a sharp knife, you can use a small knife. Some people like to use what I refer to as a tomato knife, a little serrated thing. Some people find it easier. I tend to use the same big knife. And cutting towards the root as closely together as possible. You make a lot of cuts together, but you're not slicing through the root. You then cut it through once, and hey presto, you end up with nice finely chopped shallots. This was one of the first things we did at college as well, chopping. So it was kind of already implanted in my mind about how to best chop the shallots. So there we go. We're going to cover the anchovies and the shallots. I'll just add a little bit of flavour to the pickling as well. And we're going to add some chopped parsley. You can use either flat leafed parsley or the curly parsley, it's up to you. Scatter it on top, and you've sort of got a ready-made soused anchovies there. Now you can serve these just as they are. You can put them in the fridge overnight, serve them cold, serve them warm. It's completely up to you. And you can serve these just with some toasted sourdough, really great with some sliced tomatoes, or just on their own as a little pre-dinner snack. So the next thing we're going to do is Dover sole. Now your boxes are going to have one sole with the skin on, and the other soles are going to be skinned, just so that you can get practicing. So there's two ways you can skin the sole. When I was at college, I was always taught to make a little nick here, and you can just see the skin comes off. So it's quite easy. And you just pull the skin off. Now the fresher the soles are, the more difficult they are to skin. So that's always a good sign. You just need to get the cut in the right place. This is just by the tail there. Next job, we're going to cut the fins off. So you can use a heavy knife or a pair of scissors. Again, up to you. So off with the fins. If you want to take the head off, you can, but I quite like to pan fry with the head on. Now on the white side, there's a few scales. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the sink and quickly with the knife, I'm just going to get these little scales off. So over here. In fact, let me do it on the side of the sink. It's my kitchen, I can make a mess. So we're going to, you can see why I'm doing this over the sink, because it's going to make a hell of a mess otherwise. Right, once you've done that, you just want to pat it dry. Now you can just lightly dust it in flour if you want, not 100% necessary, but some people do. I occasionally, if I'm pan frying fish, I use a bit of the gluten-free self-raising flour from Dove Farm. So, non-stick pan, get it hot before you start cooking your fish. So I'm going to start it in a bit of rapeseed oil. I'm going to finish it with some butter. I've been having a lot of fun with these anchovies, and I'll show you in a tick after. So the skin side, the one you skinned, in the pan first. And this is where a good non-stick pan comes in. So Lewis from Soused Seafood, his boats target anchovies, sardines, mackerel, plus other species. And a few weeks ago, I've been smoking my own salmon for many years. And I did a little experiment with smoked anchovies. And I put them in a little jar like this, and I'm now serving them packaged cold smoked anchovies on my fish truck. This is just a little laborious experiment. It looks nice, but it took me about half an hour to get them all in the jar lined up. Now you can do this all the way in the pan, or you can pop it in the oven to finish. So once you've got a nice bit of colour on it, a little bit of butter. Traditionally, this is known as sole meunière. So the very classic sole dishes, grilled sole or sole meunière, which is pan fried in a little bit of butter and oil. And this is one of the popular things we did working in hotels. So that's going to go in the pan. Clean down your fish scales. Now, some classic accompaniments to sole meunière. We used to have a lot of fun when I was at catering college, because there was a little red book called the Repertoire de Cuisine. And what it would have is all of the old-fashioned garnishes for different fish. So there was the classic sole meunière. The one I loved was the one with the herring rolls and capers, which is delicious. And that was called belle meunière. So you saute the herring rows, parsley, capers at the end. And we used to have a bit of fun at college. We used to really sort of test each other on all the different classic garnishes for things like Dover sole and chicken. Unfortunately, I forgot a lot of them now, and they just sort of come to me every so often in my head for some reason. Right, those anchovies are actually ready to eat now. So all you do is, I just love serving them like this with a cocktail stick and drinks. And these are in cider vinegar. So these are, I suppose, the Somerset equivalent of Spanish boccheronis. And I think your guests will love these lightly pickled anchovies. Serve that with some hot buttered toast, and you know, it's a really nice simple starter. But if you've got these pickled, you can then put them in the fridge, and you can put them into a salad and all sorts of things. You can even make a salad niçoise, so the French style, with the lettuce hearts, the olives, put some capers in season. You can put some beans in there, tomatoes. And this kind of lightly pickled fish is really ideal for that, rather than opening a tin. So with the sole today, I'm just going to literally do it as it is. Because I think sometimes Dover soles are best left alone. When we were at catering college, the college couldn't really afford Dover sole, so we used to do all the classic sole dishes with, you know, sort of second and third division fish like plaice. So our sole meunière was always a plaice meunière. When you're chopping parsley at home, if you notice, I sort of bunched it all together, and I'm shredding it first, which makes it quicker, you know, rather than just go over it all. I shred it first and then just go over it once or twice, and then you've got finely chopped parsley. Now another little trick, if you're doing stuff like parsley and you're going to put it into the pan, I've seen people sort of try and lift it up with their fingers and take it to the frying pan. Use the knife that you're chopping with, and then you clear your board all at once, and then you just take the knife to the pan. I think I might add some capers. Let's see how it goes. I might just give it a bit more colour on that side. You can use a fish slice at home for this. I tend to always use the palette knife type thing. Now with that extra butter that's left from cooking, in goes some capers, parsley, let's add a bit more butter. Now if you're cooking a couple of sole, you might want to pan fry them first, put them on a tray so that you can just put them in the oven. If it's more than that, also if you've got an oval pan, which are actually designed for this, I don't personally have one in my possession, but a large frying pan is always a good thing to do. So you're just heating up the capers and the parsley. Put that on top. And that's a classic sole meunière. And our pickled anchovies. Next time round, we're going to be doing smoked fish boxes. So as you know, I smoke my own salmon. I'm going to show you how to cure and smoke anchovies, and I've been curing some herrings as well. So Lewis has herring boats up in the north east of England, and I've been using the same cure as I use for the salmon, about 3 hours and 3 hours smoking, and I've actually got some smoked herring in my smoker downstairs at the moment. So that'll be our sort of Christmassy fish box.